everyone, and welcome back for more of March Tour number 3. This is going to be the next two stages, so stage 6 and 7. As I mentioned, and as I sort of knew to myself, I've changed up my team here. So we've got Joshua as leader there, who gives the plus 20% defense and attack for all melees. And then I've just set my team up accordingly to that and brought in a few fast and a couple of strong. So we've got a couple of healers in there, Denise and Glenn. Then we've got the multi-hitter of Jesus there. And then we've got Michonne in there, who I bring in for that epic rush of hers, which downs the attack. Now, I know typically through these acts I've been using the alert team, but for this one I thought I would change it up with the melee and bring in a combination of my strongs and fast. I don't usually use that sort of combination. I've been using it a fair bit in the last few videos, but actually in my daily use of my teams I rarely use the combination of melees. I like my ranged characters, so I'm more likely to use a combination of tough and alerts, or just a full team of toughs rather than my melee teams. But we'll see how we go with these guys. Now, as you can see, I've lost a few players already, and that's purely because in the first few stages, when it comes to these people, I like to throw out feelers. And what I mean by that is I tend not to use my battle items just to see what sort of damage they're hitting me with and what sort of damage I'm hitting them with. And then I tend to strategize with how I'm going to use my battle items in these first few waves. So I've got the vials here, the replenishers and the smell and salt. So usually in the first few waves I use my replenishers and smell and salts, and then in the last few I start using my nerf and tear gas vials. Now, as you can see there, that is why I absolutely love Michonne, that epic rush which downs their attack, so I'm not having to use my tear gas vials, so that just allows me to stockpile them for later stages where I might have to use a few of them in the one wave or anything like that. It's really good. I tend not to select any player with her. I deselect, because her area of effect for me is better when I deselect a player. She's more likely to hit all 5 than rather than selecting the middle player and she hits 3, or hit an outside one, she only hits 3. So that's why I deselect a player with hers, just so I get the benefit of her downing all 5 attack, rather than having to then use my tear gas to also down the attack of the row she's missed usually on the outside like that. But these guys are doing fairly well. Like I say, I tend to like to bring, you're better off, I like to, but you're better off. Sometimes I don't. It just depends what sort of day I'm having. I like to bring in a couple of healers. Glenn's not an overly big healer, but he is great for getting rid of any of them inhibitors or anything that is downing your ability to attack or bleeding or anything like that. So any damages you're getting from them, whether it can be 3-year plays or big group damage hits, he's great at getting rid of them, so that's why he's there, and he does a bit of healing. So that's why I like using him for some stages. I'm not a big fan of him, but in that regard he is a very handy player. I can't knock him for that. Denise, other than her rush going off very slow, she is a great player. She's a nice little healer there, so I can't really complain. As you'll see, I'll start to use my I didn't use too many tear and nerve gas vials in this, but for this last stage, Michonne didn't go off quite as yet, so I just used my vials to get rid of that. Now, I'll probably talk more strategy in that regard, but it's just the same as I always use them, and that's just basically in accordance of hitting those outside lines and get rid of them as quick as possible, and then hitting the inside line. But I'll talk about that a bit more later. We'll just finish off this final stage here. We're doing, yeah, I've lost Jesus, I've lost Denise, but that's okay, because I'm not actually trying to. When I get onto the 5th wave, I sort of lose all management of the team in regards to health and things like that. I honestly do not care if I lose a few, as long as I get through the wave. I'm not looking to keep all 5 players alive every single stage I play. So we'll move on to this one. Let's go with Constable Rick is the leader there, or the ally leader there, who isn't really the best one for him to give you, because he only gives the crit and that medium biz, but that's okay. We'll get over it. It's fairly annoying. Sometimes I hate when they give you allies. I'd rather choose my own, but you just got to deal with it. So he fits still okay with this team. He'll just up my critical hits a bit more, and I'll lose that big hitter that I had with Joshua the previous wave. But like I say, in these first few waves, I tend to use my replenishers and smell and salts, and then in the next 5, then I even out my nerf and tear gas use, so I have obviously I have 10 of them, so you have 5 waves, so that's 2 per wave, which I usually hit the outside lines with and then get rid of the inside person. The only benefit to that is having Michonne, so I don't have to use as many nerf gases, just purely because she's down in their attack, and then I can stockpile them for later on, so if the stages get a bit harder I can use more than the 2 that is originally allocated to the waves. I might be able to use 4 or how many more I need, just to make sure they're not doing too much damage to me. Now that's how I've found using the Tear and Nerf gas combination very helpful, is if I can get through that first wave by using my replenishers and smell and salts, then I can use 2 of both of the Nerf and Tear gas per wave, and then if you have someone like Michonne, then that can also save you more, so you can use more than 2 per wave. That's just how I've always used it. It's worked very well for me, and I'll continue doing it until one day it becomes useless. I doubt it will ever become useless. It is actually a pretty good way of using it, and it's how I've found, I guess, a lot of great characters in my early stages when I didn't have these high grade teams, or I didn't have the variety of teams I could choose from. That was how I won a lot of my 4-star characters, was by using that Tear and Nerf gas in that way, and it got me through. Now I'm a big fan of the Tear and Nerf gas grenades. If you haven't noticed, I talk about them all the time. I absolutely love them. They're one of my favourite battle items right now, but originally it was the Tear and Nerf gas. That's why you'll still see me use them a lot as well. So we'll just keep going. Like I say always when it comes to these stages, when you got people's stages, make sure you're keeping your HP topped up as much as possible. That's what I do. In the last wave I'm a bit more lazy with it. I don't really worry about it because I know I'm pretty well set and will get through the stage, but in these early stages you want to limit the amount of loss as much as possible, just purely because you want to save them smell and salts, just in case something goes horribly wrong in the last stages. It's nothing worse than getting the last stage and have absolutely no battle items and just being helpless. I do not use coins to revive. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather just go back and reevaluate my characters and my use of them and have another go rather than revive them. But as I said, Michonne makes these things nice and simple with that rush. I guess I am a big fan of her rush and that downing of it. I'm not overly a big fan of her as a character, but that rush is very good, and it can also makes a defense team very strong by limiting the other attacking team and things like that. But I am a big fan of that rush. I don't use her very often, but every time I do use her I am impressed by that rush and how she downs their attack. So definitely, I know there's been a few opportunities to win one of her, so hopefully a lot of you guys have one of her. She's a very valuable player, and if you can come up with a good melee team like this is not an overly strong one. It's not my best combination, but it's enough to get you through these sorts of stages, which they're doing right here. They're down to the last person. As you can see, they're not doing a huge amount of damage, but just having that extra defense is enough to keep them, and then they're just coming in and rolling them over with those rushes. So that is stage 7 done. I'll be back for the last one soon. Thank you for watching. As always, bye.